1964 was the year, and with the Olympics coming up in the summer, a watch was needed. Tokyo was the location of the games, and in doing so, resulted in Seiko being chosen as the company to create the piece. The result was this model, the Seiko Crown Chronograph, officially Japan's first chronograph watch. In 2019 we saw the release of the SARX069, a conventional 3-register, 2-pusher chronograph which, through the use of the champagne coloured dial, black bezel, multi-piece hour markers and dauphine hands, hinted at this original model. But to be totally honest, this watch felt visually quite distant to its original design. Fortunately, there was more on the way, the SARX069. This creation is a little bit more faithful to the original, and although it's not perfect, there is a lot to enjoy. This watch is all about the visuals, and more specifically, that dial and bezel. Thanks to the 11.5mm thickness, a lot of the 40.5mm width is dial, with just a 2.5mm wide bezel skimming the edge of the case. There is quite the mashup of styles here. Nowadays, most of the watches that get called versatile are divers or sports watches at their core. The reason they're now very versatile is partially down to the shift in styles and dress sense of the modern day watch wearer. The SARX069 still retains that old world charm, without any of the troubling frustrations that can arise with original vintage watches. We see lume in the hands and on the dial, a date window at 3 o'clock, and how could we forget that black frictionless bezel? With a clever choice of handsets, a dial colour, and a sunburst texture, we're actually left with the watch being the driving force for versatility, and not the generalised acceptance of an evolving style to determine what is right and what is wrong. Powering the watch is a 6R35 Seiko movement. Although it vibrates at 21,600 vibrations per hour, the trade-off is an increase in power reserve, which sits right around 70 hours. That's a big advantage over other watches at this price point, using Swiss movements that can only really offer around 40 hours. This automatic movement is also hacking, it can be hand wound, and it comes with a quick set date. These are all useful, practical features we've all come to expect and rely on. Let's take a look at how the SARX069 can be transformed with just a few straps, as we aim to give this watch a fresh new look. So it's obvious this watch undoubtedly has an elegant side to it. But if it wasn't clear enough to you already, check it out on the Kington Croc strap. We offer a few leather straps with an exotic animal print, but this strap specifically works because of the soft matte finish. Many of these straps can have quite a shiny, glossy look to them, but really where this strap shines is down to that toned down appearance. Maybe you're looking at this watch and thinking you'd actually love to dress the watch up even more than the previous Kington strap. Well, look no further than the Oblique mesh to perfectly answer your call. Mesh straps do have a touch of the Marmite effect to them, but if you are an advocate of metal straps and want something a little bit more elegant than your 3-link bracelet, they are one of the best options. If you regularly wear a shirt on a working day, or you want to use the watch for more special occasions, this is probably the strap for you. Finally, we have the most versatile pick of the bunch, the Edwyn leather watch strap. This particular choice in light brown uses a beautifully soft leather, complemented with a ridiculously comfortable addition of padding throughout. This strap also comes with a deployment buckle as standard, which really ties the whole package together. If you're after a strap that will never look out of place and be your perfect daily option, this would be our suggestion. You've probably noticed that the original 1964 model was a monopusher chronograph, but this, the SARX069, is simply just a time and date only model. Let's be honest here and say it how it is. Seiko have made a watch that is a tribute to a historical model with one of the most important features, and why it was created in the first place, not being present. So why isn't this model equivalent also a chronograph? And at that, a monopusher chronograph? From a purist point of view, this could frustrate, but there are a couple of important factors in my eyes. To start with, Seiko only use in-house developed movements. A monopusher isn't exactly the most common of executions for a chronograph nowadays, so this would mean the Japanese brand would have to modify an existing double pusher chronograph. That's going to get expensive quite quickly. And this is without even mentioning the increased size that the chronograph movement would require, let alone how usable that investment would be in the other models. The other reason simply comes down to demand and customer expectations. Seiko is a brand adored by every type of person with any sort of relationship to watches across the world. Seiko is one of a few brands who are all things to all people, so going through the effort of modifying a mechanical chronograph movement so it works flawlessly as a monopusher is at best only really going to appeal to one slice of the Seiko fandom pie, especially if you consider this watch has an RRP of sub £1,000. For a proportion of Seiko lovers, it might feel like a missed opportunity, but in this case, the SARX069 is your only option. In an ideal world, would I have personally loved to see this watch as a monopusher? Yes, probably, but the price point would have ultimately been enough to turn me off. It's a nice to have feature, but without it, the watch really isn't a failure. As always with our reviews, we like to be totally honest. If there are some aspects of the watch that don't quite sit well with us, we mention them. Commonly, these aren't points that we feel should stop someone adding the watch to their collection if they love it. They're more good to be aware of points. To start with, the buckle only has 2 micro adjustments. It feels almost too obvious to comment on Seiko's bracelet making skills, as for the most part, this oyster style bracelet is pretty good, but the presence of only 2 micro adjustments is a real shame. That robbery of vital adjustments feels extremely un-Seiko, and it is one that did impact my time with the watch. And finally, there are a few legibility issues. In bright light or daylight, it's not uncommon for the dial of the SARX069 to be extremely washed out and actually quite difficult to read. It feels like the watch could benefit from some more contrast on the dial, perhaps even a deeper champagne tone, and quite possibly an extension of the radial concentric lines to the edge of the dial, where at the moment just the indices sit. So, some final thoughts. Well, this is a watch from Seiko that will stick in my mind for some time. It's one of those pieces that simply challenges everything you thought you knew about a watch type, all while not actually offering vastly different features. Not all sports watches need to look like an Aquaterra or an Explorer, and this reference from Seiko is the proof. On the wrist, it blends that old world charming style with new world versatility and functionality. All of this is available from a brand with genuine storytelling and meaning. The Seiko SARX069 Presage is now available with an RRP of $825, limited to 1,964 models. To find out more, we'll leave a link to the Seiko website in the description below. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.